Hey, welcome. So, we've all been there, right? You get this incredible burst of energy to start something new. You buy the fancy journal, you download the app, you maybe even write that first page. But then, somewhere along the way, that fire just kind of fizzles out. Today, we're going to dig into that gap and explore a really powerful idea for how to close it for good. We've all heard this quote a million times. It makes sense. Motivation is the spark, and habit is the fuel that keeps the engine running. And look, it's not wrong, but it's definitely not the whole story. Because let's be real, a lot of the time it isn't enough. The journal ends up gathering dust, the running shoes stay by the door, and that habit you were so excited about, it just never fully locks in. So what gives? What's the missing piece of the puzzle here? Well, it turns out there's this third thing, something that goes way deeper than motivation or even habit. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus had a name for it. He called it becoming a unified human being. And this is the real game changer. It's about shifting from just doing things to fundamentally being someone. So, what does that actually mean to be a unified human being? Well, think of it as a state of total, complete integration. There's no daylight between what you believe and what you do. You are, in a word, all in. This isn't about dipping your toes in the water. It's a full-on commitment. And Epictetus, he did not mess around. He put the choice in these really stark black and white terms. For him, there's no middle ground. You either commit to living an intentional, examined life, that's the philosopher's path, or you just get swept up in all the noise and distractions, the path of the mob. You're either in or you're out. And this contrast here just lays it out perfectly. You've got the philosopher, unified, focused on what's internal, completely all in. And then you have the mob, fragmented, always looking for outside approval, and ultimately, as Epictetus warned, torn apart by all these competing desires. Okay, so this unified life sounds pretty good in theory, but what does it actually look like in the real world? Let's break it down using two archetypes that seem like opposites, but are actually two sides of the very same coin. So on one hand, you've got the artist. This is the visionary, right? The one who sees what isn't there yet, who lives in that exciting world of what could be. And on the other hand, you have the craftsman. The craftsman is all about the work itself, that deep satisfaction you get from just building something with care and doing it well. Now here's the magic. Neither one is enough on its own. As Simon Sinek puts it, you have to blend them. An artist with no craft just dreams, and a craftsman with no vision just builds the same thing over and over. The truly unified creative life needs the artist's big picture dream and the craftsman's dedication to the work. So how does all this philosophy stuff actually apply to our day-to-day lives? Because it does, in some really profound ways. And there's this one story that makes the distinction between doing and being crystal clear. It's a story about the late, great ESPN anchor, Stuart Scott. One day, he was out at a restaurant with his two young daughters. And as they were leaving, a woman stopped him, and she was trying to be nice. She really was. She told him he was doing such a great job babysitting his kids. But Stuart Scott didn't hear it as a compliment. Not at all. He knew instantly that it was an insult. Now why? It seems harmless, right? But he understood that her words implied he was just a temporary stand-in, covering for the real parent. And that brings us to this critical distinction right here. See, a babysitter performs a function. They just show up. But a father inhabits an identity. He is present. One is a job, the other is who you fundamentally are. And that is the absolute heart of the unified life. You don't just do the thing, you are the thing. Okay, but what happens when that identity gets tested? When life throws you with curveball and things go horribly wrong? Because the ultimate test of a unified life isn't about how you cruise through the good times, it's about how you face adversity. I mean, wow. This quote sounds incredibly harsh, doesn't it? A young man has lost everything, he asks the master for some hope, and that's the answer he gets? But this isn't about being cruel. It's a profound lesson about the hidden dangers of false hope. The Stoics really got this. They knew that pinning all your hopes on some perfect outcome that might never happen can actually break you. The wild paradox here is that the very thing we're so afraid of, adversity, is the thing that shows us what we're really made of. It's the fire that forges our true strength. So their response wasn't passive. It was a three-step process. First, just expect adversity. It's not an if, it's a when. Second, use that struggle to discover what you're capable of. And third, and this is the most radical step, love your fate. You embrace whatever happens, not because you wanted it to, but because it is now the path forward. Okay, so we've talked philosophy, we've talked mindset, but how do we actually start living this way? How do we go from just hearing about this stuff to actually being all in? The most common way we live a disintegrated life is just procrastination. Seneca hit the nail on the head. We tell ourselves this little lie. We're not failing. No, we're just getting ready to start. We're always living in the lobby of our own lives, just waiting to be called in. So what's the solution? It is almost laughably simple, but incredibly powerful. Do it now. That email you've been putting off, that first paragraph you need to write, that tough conversation you know you need to have, closing that gap between thinking and doing in this very moment is the core practice of an integrated life. I absolutely love this quote from St. Augustine because it just captures the balance of it all so perfectly. Take care of your body, your skills, your health, with the long game in mind. But take care of your soul, your purpose, what really matters, with the urgency of knowing that time is short. It's the artist and the craftsman all in one. And so that brings us to one final, really personal question. When you look at the most important parts of your life, your work, your relationships, your passions, are you just showing up or are you truly present? In your own life, are you the father or are you the babysitter? Answering that, honestly, is the first step toward living a unified life. Thanks for tuning in.